Watch out in the crowd. It's coming your way. Bang, bang, 6-6. Fabulous innings, fabulous game. Fantastic tournament.
Marky, welcome back. So good to have you again. 2 weeks into the tournament. What have you made of it so far?
I'm riveted. I'm loving it. It's like I'm watching Test cricket every day. I've stopped playing Predict Sports because I can't call anything that's going on in New York. I mean, at one stage I was looking at I think India could lose to the United States today.
Yeah.
And then they got that 5-run penalty. Kohli going in out first ball against that giant who's opening the bowling for the States. I think it's been fantastic to see the competitors because of the conditions, especially in the matches in the States. And it's kept me interested. I know a lot of people are kind of glancing in, and we saw Namibia get blown away by Australia, but that's been the exception. The norm in this competition has been it's going to go down to the last over.
Yeah.
So I saw Miller and Klaasen being interviewed the other day and said their approach has been you play in the middle overs in a traditional ODI.
Yeah.
And there's been a science to how you've had to win games and close games out here, and I've enjoyed that.
Yeah, and you and I mean, privately, we're still disagreeing about what constitutes a fair contest. And I think I'm still on where I was when we first chatted about that. And if you didn't see that, you can go back and watch it. But there's no question that the tournament is more exciting for it, specifically the games in New York. I looked at the top 10 run scorers in the tournament. Of those 10, only Rishabh Pant and David Miller have played all three of their pool games to date in New York. The rest of the Oaks have either been in the West Indies or they've played up in Dallas, where that wicket seems to have played a little bit better. But despite my, I'm still very much of the opinion that the wickets are in sort of creating a fair contest. But I can't argue that the tournament has been more exciting for it.
Yeah, and you look at the bowling returns: 5 for 9, 4 for 9. 2 for 6. I mean, it's wonderful. It's like club cricket in Cape Town. The Sunday socials,
yeah.
When you go out there, we get 4 for 11 and 3.
Yeah.
And then you compare it in a way to the IPL when you've got a Stark going for 41 in 3 overs and Cummins going for 64 in 4 overs because it's just foot down and then smash it for 12s.
Yeah.
So I've really liked that, and to see the very best batsmen who are great stroke players, someone like Kohli, struggle because of it's just not made for natural kind of stroke play. But then to see
at the time of filming, he hadn't gone into double figures in the tournament at any stage.
4-1 and 0 and the first bowler against the States and the second bowler against Pakistan.
Yeah.
But then looking at that Pakistan-India game and the crowd, I think it was like 34,000, and if I'm right, insane. The atmosphere, it was carnival time, man. It was brilliant. And I've really enjoyed that. So how big it's going to impact on America, I don't know, in terms of I don't think it's going to advance the game as much, because if you also see who's doing it for the American side here, it's not kids who have given up the desire to play baseball to become international cricketers for the United States.
Right.
So it will definitely lift the profile a bit. But yeah, I've enjoyed it. I've also just enjoyed seeing batsmen have to work for runs, but then also seeing, for those who have played significant innings, to see them grow in stature. It's very much like watching a first-class game, where, I mean, you've played with a lot of guys where you play on some difficult tracks, and there's a one-oak in your team that he makes 40 when the team bowled up for 55. But he
grinds it out.
And you can see mentally he's there, and he kind of knows what he's doing, and he's adapted to the pitch and that kind of stuff. And you've seen those kind of guys come through, and the column you wrote about Miller as well, just the maturity that he has shown, which has been amazing to watch, all the years of experience, because he's had to adapt his game and play a completely different role. Klaasen, a very different role as well, you know, and those are the senior kind of players that I would say the Proteas need to be functioning effectively going over to the West Indies when it comes to the tournament proper, as we'd call it.
Yeah, Miller in particular for me has been the standout from a batting perspective. When you get 59, 29, and a 6 not out, I think it was. And I think the circumstances around those innings, he always came in under pressure. And the way that he's played, I mean, that's what you take him to a World Cup to, right? That's what you take somebody with that experience for a World Cup to, is to win those games. And it, I mean, you could make the argument that South Africa would be in a very different position had Miller not ground those innings out in the way he did. Obviously, partnerships are important in cricket, but he's been the one standout for South Africa, and I've been really, really impressed by the way that he's played in this pool phase.
What I'm finding very different to this South African tournament participation so far as to previous World Cups, be it ODIs or T20s, is there seems to be a calm and confidence about what they're doing out there, and no real panic. And things are going our way in the sense that ordinarily that first full toss from Maharaj goes, it goes very
90
far.
90 meters into the crowd.
Not into the crowd, into the city.
Yeah.
And it falls in our favour. So is this going to be the World Cup where, for once, we get the roll of the dice? The rain stays away from us. Again, the way we were forced to fight against Nederland and actually come out with the win. And it's like you say, the mental aspect of especially cricket is, once you start believing you can't beat another team, it actually starts playing in your mind, Or you've played against those cricketers, you think, how do I get out to this guy? But you do.
Right.
And you see the next guy come in and just smash him to all parts of the field. So I've enjoyed the calm, Markram's captaincy. The bowlers have bowled with enthusiasm, knowing it's going to be small totals, that they're either going to have to defend or try and bowl them out cheaply. And they look very settled as well. I mean, I'm expecting the cock to come good in the West Indies, and it's certainly Markram. Mm-hmm. I think you said his strike rate's what?
Yeah, 130. So he hasn't played that much in the West Indies, but in the 3 T20 games he's played there, average is 37 at a strike rate of 130, which is elite in T20 from an international perspective. So I know there's been a lot of talk about Markram's form. He averages 6 in the tournament.
Well, Kohli averages what, 2?
Yeah, exactly. So the comparison is like, people were so hard on Temba Bavuma in the ODI World Cup and in the T20 World Cup prior to that. But I just think circumstantially that I don't know what Temba's going to score on those New York wickets, but that's neither here nor there. But there's a glimmer of hope for Markram statistically, but there's no question that he has to be under pressure. They go into just before the Super Round now. They play Nepal in the West Indies. They play the rest of their matches in the West Indies, and his record there is good. And so he needs to deliver now. But I agree with you. His captaincy for me has been strong and innovative, and he's picked up quickly that the scoring areas are down the ground, and there's been a clear instruction for the bowlers to allow batters to only hit down the ground. And when you're bowling a short delivery, it's got to have something on it. It's got to be a slower pitch, short one, or you really need to get your back into it and get it up there around shoulder height or head height. And so I've enjoyed Markram, but there's no question that he's going to come under pressure if he doesn't yet get on the board soon.
But I think once they get to the West Indies, there's also more realism, more familiarity in terms of they play on truer pitches.
Yeah.
We know how those tracks play over there.
Yeah.
We're familiar with the history of those grounds. This was a very important 2 weeks for the Proteas, in that they could comfortably have been out of this tournament already.
Yeah.
Because Sri Lanka is a team that's beaten them often. Bangladesh, it's going to be, when are they going to beat us? They've beaten nearly every other top team, and it came down to inches. The Netherlands, again, had us 12 for 4.
Yeah.
So on another day, we may have gone out, and it could have been, conditions were foreign, never played on dropping pitches in New York. It's not real. So we don't make it to the top 8. We don't actually play in the T20 World Cup. So I think it's a hell of an achievement for them to have come through against those kinds of teams where you see a Pakistan stumbling, see an India struggling.
Yeah. New Zealand and England are almost out of it.
You know, I read an intro from one of the New Zealand websites this morning, and it said they arrive late and they're leaving very early.
Yeah.
And then again, we talk about guys just with wonderful eyes and stroke play. And you see how Devon Conway has struggled over there and just can't get going, trying to force it. So their bowlers have done the job for them.
Yeah.
The Trent Bolts of the world and Southees, it feels like they've been around for 50 years.
Yeah.
But it's Glenn Phillips got some runs, but for the rest, it's Williamson. It's like Kohli. These are some of the greatest batsmen, certainly of their generation, and they're not cleaning up anyone there.
Yeah.
They will grow. Like Kohli will obviously get better once they get to the West Indies, but I think there has to be then context when we talk about Markram's potential struggles or De Kock's struggles up front. Everyone is struggling up front in that top 5. You know, many teams are 12 for 3, 20 for 4.
Yeah.
Somehow you get that middle order kind of recovery, and then a good bowling attack goes out and defends it. So, I think it's been, for me, it's been an opening fortnight where they've expanded the size of the competition that has had a hell of a lot of interest because they have leveled those playing fields so much through conditions, and I think that's great.
Undoubtedly. And you know what the interesting dynamic of this competition now is that all of the Super Round is going to be played in the West Indies. So it's like a new tournament begins now because the conditions, especially from that New York wicket to any of the grounds in the West Indies, it's night and day. And it feels like a new tournament begins now. It feels like your Kohlis, your Quinny de Kocks, potentially Aiden Markram, and a clutch of others. Now those guys start to come into the tournament, and it's such an interesting dynamic for me that the difference between what we've experienced, particularly in New York, to what we're going to see in the West Indies, creates like quite an interesting dynamic for me.
And also there with the everyone plays everyone system.
Yeah,
there's additional pressures that come on. You may look at, well, I'm playing that team 2 weeks down the line, it should be a gimme, but then the pressure starts building because they've won a game they shouldn't have. One was rained out, and now it's a run rate game.
Yeah.
And it changes the whole thinking around it. So I've really enjoyed it in what we've seen. It's going to get better. I love the fact that there's a lot of confidence around the West Indies because in years gone by, people were going back to the glory test days of the West Indies. The Brian Laras, the four-pronged pace attacks. But this West Indies side over the last 4 or 5 years, and a lot through playing in the IPL and playing in nearly every kind of T20 circuit, they've started to get the new games superstars. Mm-hmm. You know, so we're starting to get the Brian Lara of T20, not looking for a test cricketer who should be playing like that. So to your point that you've made, that is T20 going to be in a couple of years a completely different game to cricket with different skill sets? I think that's where a lot of people have underestimated this West Indies side, is that they're not those traditional 4-day cricketers. They're not the test team. They are T20 specialists out and out. And they bring a very different, some of them don't even play ODIs now. It's just the T20 format. So I've enjoyed the fact that they've been comfortable. Important for them to do well with it being at home. Australia, again, just showing their class in the way, people say Namibia, but the way they demolished them. So when Travis Head gets going, Hazelwood, Mitchell Stark, when they bowl well.
Yeah.
But the thing that's also intrigued me is they play in this World Cup in green and we're playing in gold. So maybe that's the issue. We should have been playing in gold and green, and they can play in green and a little bit of gold. So we'll look for everything at this stage. But yeah, it's, I can't wait to watch us play them. Us play India and that kind of. I'm glad those games. We wouldn't play in any of those games in New York.
Yeah.
That those big teams will be playing there.
It would do that game a disservice, or the caliber of that game a disservice. But you spoke about the West Indies. It feels like they've got it feels like there's an identity around them now, and without wanting to jinx it, I feel like a lot of that is happening with this Proteas side as well. There's maybe circumstances have forced them to have a like this resilient identity. But I think it's actually, that's, if you look below the surface, that speaks to a team's ability to adapt and evolve, and to meet the requirements of the conditions that they face. And I think that any challenge going forward now for the Proteas are going to be built around that bowling attack of theirs. I expect, all the talk coming into the tournament was how dynamic South Africa's top six especially is, and the options that they've got in that team to either rebuild the innings if there's been a early collapse, or to really accelerate the innings with the likes of, we spoke about that spine of that team, Klaasen, Muller, and who else did we talk about there? Stubbs, yeah.
And your thing with Stubbs was that if they accommodated Rickleton up, higher up, Stubbs then potentially falls out, whether they drop a bowler out for Stubbs to be in. But I think they also see Stubbs playing a very particular role. Yeah. And especially on those West Indian tracks, more so than what we've experienced in New York.
I've really enjoyed his energy in the field as well. You can really see he's up for this, and it means something to me that it means something to him. Because in previous World Cups, the magnitude of the event seems to have taken the joy away from our players, and the historical kind of baggage that has come with the World Cup seems to have stolen some of our joy. And just, Stubbs for me has embodied like this new generation of South African player that isn't weighted down by the past. And of course that will come into play now in the Super Rounds and if they get into the semi-finals. But I've really enjoyed watching Stubbs, his energy in the field, the way he encourages players around him. It's tangibly lifted players. And so, obviously he's an incredible batter, but what he brings to the team is so much, transcends what he gives them with the bat.
But if you go back to Markram captaining the SA Under-19 side that won the World Cup, where Rabada played in it, was one of the bowlers of the tournament. Even going back to that World Cup, the maturity that Markram showed as a captain, very understated. Present, you can see in his thinking, but not loud and not bullish. And has played into this kind of under-the-radar narrative of the Proteas because he's really quoted. He does his media duties that he has to. He doesn't give away headlines in terms of a quote. He's kind of considered, and he seems to be enjoying himself out there. And, it's also one of those ones, I know when the squad was selected, there was talk about where there wasn't a ethnic black batsman in the thing. It was in the bowling department and it has to change. And I've also found that once they got to New York, no one seems to be really fixated with the color makeup of this team, yet that the diversity is there, and they're all performing. And so you've got Bartman playing, for example, and Coetzee not making the side. No one's saying it's because he's white that he's not making the side. It's because he's not white. It's like
Bartman has been exceptional.
He's been exceptional, and he's just there because he's the best cricketer in that attack to do a job. So I also feel that this has been one World Cup where you're not reading about politics every day when it comes to the Proteas. You're not reading about that player X is going to be the player of the tournament. You're not reading about this expectation. There seems to be an understanding as well that these smaller teams in T20s on weird tracks are going to trouble you. It's not like why didn't we blow them away and get 250? We're not going to do it again. So there's been a lot of positivity around South Africa, but also aided by the fact that so many other big teams have struggled. When the past it's just been South Africa. And then we lost 3 warm-up games in the West Indies and was like, okay, well, are they going to make it to the West Indies for the proper tournament? So I think that has worked in their favour, but I do think it comes down to the leadership. And we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago. There seems to be this very, very clear understanding of who's in that side, why they're there, and what their role is. And they've all accepted it.
And what has stood out for me is Markram's ability to pivot when a bowler has been under pressure. Before there used to be I think, and this is just, I'm not just talking about Performance-Ren. Even prior to that, I felt like there was a lot of rigidity tactically in what we done. So bowler X and bowler Y would open the bowling. Then we'd have these guys as our first change. They'd bowl out or they'd bowl 2-3 overs and we'd keep them for the death. Then it's very formulaic. And so I haven't seen a lot of that with Markram. And it's been encouraging. It's been refreshing to watch him show confidence in Keshav in the game against was it Bangladesh.
We gave him first time ever he's bowled the 20th over in a T20 to close it out.
Set aside the fact that they should have hit him into the Hudson with both of those full tosses. I really enjoyed the bravery, the bravery, like the captaincy bravery that took, and
he took the catch as well.
Exactly,
1 of 4 in the game. So and the enthusiasm and the joy that came with it, kind of starts telling you something about the mood that's in that camp.
Right.
And while the Cock hasn't scored a lot of runs, he seems interested in the game. Where at times, no matter whether he's scoring or not, he just seems to lose interest.
Right.
And he's an integral part of, if he's interested, the knock-on effect is to the next person. But I think he's also enjoying the calmness of the leadership that Markram is bringing.
Absolutely. And another player that's whose temperament is exactly like that is Rabada. Rabada can sometimes float through games and literally float deliveries up, but you can see that one, there's a sense of accountability. So he feels the pressure of carrying the attack as that senior figure in the bowling lineup. He feels that, and Markram has been brave when Rabada has bowled poorly to yank him. Instead of Rabada conceding 13, 14 and over, Markram has gone like, okay, we'll bring you back late in the innings, but we're not going to let the opposition get into you and then shift the momentum of the game like that. And I've really enjoyed that.
But also when in the Bangladesh game, which was going away from them with a middle order partnership, and when he brought him back, you just knew he was brought back to strike, and he was, and it seemed like the most innocuous delivery.
Yeah.
But it was euphoria straight up that, listen, this one's, we've broken this partnership, and that was the momentum changer. So when a captain goes to his big players and they deliver straight up, we spoke about the early form of Nokia has also been important for what's going to happen in the West Indies.
Right.
And then there's the one thing about the squad is there is very good depth in the non-players out of the starting 11. So
particularly in the bowling ranks.
So if someone goes down or maybe does lose form, it's not like you think, we got a problem now.
Yeah.
It's a quality individual that is stepping in. So I've enjoyed it. I've been enthused. And I've really watched it just as a fan, and followed it, and also followed the competition quite closely to give context to that. And as I said on the Predict Sports thing, my winning streak took a pounding last week, and my win-loss ratio took a pounding. I'm avoiding trying to make any form. The only thing I think I got right was there won't be 11 wides in this game. Because when it comes into boundaries, where you think that there's 28 boundaries or there's 15 sixes, and it was easy pickings in the IPL. The trend was there. Here it's like, okay, let me see. Leg buys, wides, okay, we'll go with that. Is anyone going to get 50? Where they playing? No.
So, New York, no.
Yeah, so it's just been, it's been really cool in terms of previous ones. You go, that's the top 4. That's where your focus is. And when it gets down to the last 4, when the tournament will come alive.
Right.
Here the tournament came alive quite quickly because a big team got beaten.
And it's been refreshing. And I've enjoyed it.
And then that smaller nation, in terms of cricketing terms, that beat them, went on to win again the next match. So it's like, okay, hang on a second. One of the big two in this thing is going to go out, or has the potential to go out. So, I've enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed the quality of players that are there. And like, again, I keep on going back to me being the cricketing traditions. Yeah. I like to see Mitchell Starc charging in and looking like he's a hell of a hard to play against.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing 6s, 12s and 15s sailing back over his head, seeing good spinners get reward.
Right.
and good batsmen will come through.
Yeah.
They will ultimately, some take a bit longer than others, but class will prevail at this competition, and India will be a very different beast the minute they get to the West Indies.
Right. Especially, I mean, Bumrah still hasn't really found ET straps, but they certainly will. I've enjoyed this, but I am looking forward to the Super Round, and we'll pick up this conversation again as soon as that starts.
Cheers, thanks, man.
Good to have you.
Watch out in the crowd. It's coming your way. Bang, bang, 6-6. Fabulous innings, fabulous game. Fantastic tournament.